What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the RBI podcast. I am your host, Richie. We have episode number 7, New Year's resolutions. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you had a safe and very safe holiday, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah. All the holidays are over now, and we are moving onward and upward to 2023. Like always, follow me on TikTok and Instagram, and now Twitter at RBI Pod, as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel RBI Podcast. I am also going to be coming out with a NFL playoff prediction when that day comes, so be on the lookout for that. I'll tell you how to get there and how I have things separated for content on YouTube. So be on the lookout for that in a couple weeks. And I was going to delay this till Thursday because of the climate of sports world right now. Obviously, we know about the situation. I'll talk about it at the end of this, but I wanted to bring some positivity and bring some happiness to what was a somber day in the sports world. Even if you are not a football fan, I think you guys know what I'm talking about. But just wanted to bring some positivity and just talk some baseball. Basically, this is going to be a very simple episode. I'm going to do New Year's resolutions for every team. It was as promised. And then actually worked out because it was kind of a slow, not much moves. Like still nothing on Correa. There was some Ken Rosenthal report, but besides that, nothing really. Some minor moves happened. But besides that, I'm just going to have some fun with this. And like always, just appreciate you guys' love and support. I'm getting a lot of love on TikTok right now from you guys, and I really like that. And I enjoy it. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. That's the biggest thing. Subscribe. Subscribe to the Apple as well. So Spotify, Anchor, whatever you use. So without further ado, let's get going for number 7. So we're going to, like I said, this New Year's resolutions, I'm going to just do a short little, whatever. I listed a phrase or whatever that we can talk about for each team. So let's get going with the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves New Year's resolution is to sign Max Fried. I say this because we know, every deal has been super cheap for them. They let Dansby walk. They let Freeman walk. They're probably going to let Travis d'Arnaud walk, even though he's not on the same level when it comes to a contract. And Max Fried is at that level, in my opinion. But it's like everyone else is signed. So how about go over with one guy? Why not? And he's probably going to cost big money. I don't think he'll get $300 million like Garrett Cole did a couple years ago. But I could see the Rodon contract being given to Max Fried for sure. I think they're neck and neck for best lefty in the league, along with Framber Valdez and Kershaw as well. And the Braves they don't want to go over that luxury tax. I'm not really sure why. They're not. Their owner has got a decent amount of money. Well, they all have a lot of money, but you know what I mean. In scales to the rest of the owners. So that would be mine for them. New Year's resolution is sign Max Fried. Also, just stay healthy. Every team is stay healthy. I'm going to highlight some players that need to stay healthy, but everyone stay healthy. Everyone, just stay healthy. Sign Max Fried, and just establish your culture again. Every year, year in and year out, you have that culture, and just keep going with it. Number 2, the Arizona Diamondbacks. I wrote down be active at the deadline. I spoke a lot last week about them. I actually got some, a couple of comments, some pushback on it. I never said they were going to win the World Series. Never said they were going to win the division. Never said they were going to make the playoffs. I just said they were going to improve. I think I brought the Orioles as the team and Seattle. Maybe, I think Chicago White Sox from a couple years ago. But Baltimore last year took a major step forward when they brought up Adley Rutschman. Arizona has a ton of young talent. They have Jake McCarthy, Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte is probably their core guy. And they just traded, what's his name? Who they trade for? Help me out. Oh, they traded Dalton Varsho, but they got back Lourdes Gurriel and Gabriel Moreno. So they have that young core in place like the Orioles do, and look at the leap the Orioles made. And I also think the Diamondbacks might have better pitching, at least better frontline starters, and I think they need to be active because this is kind of your window to attack. You have a decent farm system, especially with all these guys coming up. Go get whoever's available. If Devers is available, don't be afraid to go get him. If Shohei becomes available, which that would probably won't happen, but don't be afraid to go get him. Not saying you have to sign him, But I think what's underrated in sports, especially baseball, is you set a precedent. We are here to win. We're not here just to be second place. We're not here just to make the playoffs. We're here to go all the way. And the Diamondbacks haven't been there in a long time. Why not be active? Why not do that? Why not be aggressive? If it fails, you still have a young core. Like, I'm not saying trade any of those guys unless you're getting back like Mike Trout, which that's not going to happen. So be active at the deadline, go for it, and why not? What's the worst that happens? Like, your team hasn't been good in a while. By the way you're going, I saw rumors like, oh, trade Zach Allen. No, keep Zach Allen and go get Pablo Lopez. Go get, like I said, go get Rafael Devers. Go get somebody. They were in on Bogarts, I saw, so that's a good sign. But to build off it, rather than being interest kings, go get the guy. Chicago Cubs, I just put get back to relevancy. Ever since 2016, like the World Series, they've made the playoffs, I believe, like a couple of times. I know they made it in the 2020 season. They got bounced by the Marlins, which is insane to me. But they signed Dansby Swanson. They're close to signing Eric Hosmer as of right now. I'm not sure if that's official yet. So they got some veteran guys. Like, Hosmer's definitely a good guy for that clubhouse, especially for a kid like Chris Morel or Seiya Suzuki, like some of the younger or newer guys in the major leagues. They signed Jameson Taillon, so they have major league talent. I just think they're very limited. I think they'll be like a 500 team at best. So just get back to like that relevancy, that winning culture. And then next year is the year you want to like make a big move or another big move, because I don't think Dansby Swanson is a last piece. I think I've said that before. So get yourself back to winning. Like, they weren't good at all last year. Get yourself back to respectable. Like, I think they might be closer to the Brewers than people think, but I don't think they're better than the Brewers by any means. But I think their records might not be that far off, depending on what the Brewers keep doing and also how the Cubs players play. Like, if Dansby Swanson is what he was the last 3 years, that's a very good upgrade over what they had. Because then you move Nico Horner to second. It's a very strong shortstop and second baseman. They lose Wilson Contreras. That's not going to help. But, you know, like, he was kind of checked out, it seemed like. And I know he said it with the Cardinals and all that stuff. But you still got Ian Happ. He's probably not a part of your future plans anyway, so you can probably get prospects for him and get younger, get more solidified, build a foundation. And I think they need to do that. But just like get established culture. I think culture is so big, and the Cubs, like, they had it with that Bryant Rizzo Baez run. Try to get it again with Dansby and whoever you want to put around him. Cincinnati Reds. I really wanted to sell the team, but I didn't want to do that. So I put establish Hunter Green as your ace. This team does not have a lot of talent, let's be honest. They have like Nick Senzel. I think he's still on the team, to be honest. They have like Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Jonathan India. Like, they don't really have that many great or good baseball players. But Hunter Green has a world of talent, and he figured something out in the second half last year. He stopped giving up a ton of homers, which is hard to do in that ballpark anyway, but he was giving up an alarming amount. Establish him as your ace. If he could be that next young phenom, you can really build around him, and you don't have to worry about it. Is he going to have the greatest numbers? No, but it is a little concerning that his fastball got hit up so much, but if you can establish him, I know like the Reds have had pretty good luck with pitchers like Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, and all those guys. Trevor Bauer even was over there. Get him to where he needs to be and go from there. The Reds aren't going to win this year, but if he is good or if he's not good, it is going to make a world of difference of where they're going to be in 2024 and how their plan is going to lay out in 2024. The Colorado Rockies, this team, like the Chris Bryant signing made no sense to me at all. Brendan Rodgers is a good little player, but build a dome. That's my New Year's resolution. Build a dome, because as long as they're outdoors, I don't even know if the dome would help, to be honest, but as long as they're outdoors, no matter what you do to the ball's going to fly out of that place. And you will never get successful pitchers there. And the way you win in baseball, obviously you have to hit. But you notice like the Astros always have one of the top pitching rotations, one of the top pitchers ERAs, top pitchers FIPS. You can't win just by outslugging teams. And it's not even the home runs, it's the gaps, because you hit a line drive, it's a triple rather than a two hopper to the wall guy is on second. That makes a difference at the end of the year, especially when you haven't developed pitching at all either. Like Kyle Freeland's been up and down. Austin Gomber didn't have a good year last year. Herman Marquez was awful last year, except for the one start against the Mets, but we don't have to talk about that. And I know they have a couple young guys coming up. I saw, I think it was MLB Nerds on Twitter I forget his name, but he had like a Rockies prospect like very high, and I don't know much about the kid, so I can't make a judgment, but I'm gonna look it up and make my own opinion on that. But for now, like the Rockies have a couple of good players, like CJ Cron's good, Ryan McMahon's good, Chris Bryant, if he can stay healthy, is good. Charlie Blackmon's kind of old at this point. I'm forgetting a couple guys, but Brendan Rodgers, like I said before. But build a dome. That's their New Year's resolution. Build a dome, because the quality of your team would balance out more. It will also help your team when they go on the road. The curveball is going to look the same rather than spin a ton less and look different, or spin a ton more. Excuse me. And I think that's like their problem right now. Or, excuse me. Sorry. What the heck? Anyway, do that and fix it from there, because right now they're never going to develop the pitching they need. The Dodgers, I never thought I would write this for the Los Angeles Dodgers, but let the kids play. They didn't sign Trey Turner. They signed JD Martinez. They don't really have, like, Gavin Lux is probably going to move to short, but they have a couple of young kids coming up. Bobby Miller has been rumored to come up. Michael Busch has already been, I believe, up and down in the big leagues. They have a couple of pitchers coming up. Let these kids play. Like, you have Freeman, you have Betts, you have Kershaw, you have Will Smith, you have Max Muncy. You lost Justin Turner, but he was older anyway. Trey Thompson, if he can do what he did again. If Chris Taylor can get back to himself, like you still have a ton of talent. I don't think they're better than the Padres anymore, but if these kids can pan out, maybe you kind of replace Trey Turner. Maybe not at that level, but maybe you replace that talent a little bit. They've done a good job, actually, of kind of doing that in the past with some, like, not no-name prospects, but they haven't really been known to have, like, the big-time prospect besides Gavin Lux. Like, they traded Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray for Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. So, obviously, when you're that good, you're not going to be known for your prospects anyway. But they're at that point now where, like, they lost a star player, and they lost two in 2 years because they lost Seager as well. But you have Betts and Freeman. Like, that's probably the best 3-4 in baseball. I don't really think that's arguable. Off the top of my head, at least, maybe Arenado Goldschmidt. But I would argue Betts Freeman's better. And let these kids play. Let them fill out. Let them, like, work their way in, because they don't have to be the stars. Will you take a step back this year? Maybe. But you can't replace Trey Turner. Like, it's impossible. Like, unless these kids are that good. But the chances of that happening are slim to none. Even if they are, like, all-star level baseball players, they still might not be as good as Trey Turner. For the Miami Marlins, I got trade Pablo Lopez. The Marlins, like, they're in this weird spot again where they have a couple young players and that's it, and then they trade them away and then they restart. We saw it with, like, the Reyes team. We saw it, but even before that, we saw it with Yelich, Ozuna, and Stanton for sure. And they have Alcantara, they have Luzardo, they have a couple of other young pitchers if Sixto Sanchez can ever stay healthy. And then they have Pablo Lopez, who is not going to be there long term. So get something for him now. Trade him to... I brought up the Diamondbacks before. I don't know if the Yankees would still be in on him, but everyone's looking for pitching. It's baseball. Everyone's going to be looking for pitching. Everyone needs an extra arm. Maybe hit up the Astros. They lost Justin Verlander. But if they trade him, you get prospects back, you move on. Because I don't say you don't need him. He's a very good pitcher. But you're not winning with him. You don't really have... Like, J.J. Bleday came up, but who knows how good he's going to be. But besides that, like, is your farm system phenomenal? No. So it's like, bulk up that system and get some quality players. And especially for a guy that's not going to be in your plans long term. Besides that, the Marlins, like, they spent money last year, like on Avisail Garcia, and that didn't work out at all. Jacob Stallings did not work out at all. So if they bounce back, they might be a little better. Also, if Jazz Chisholm can stay healthy, which back's a little concerning, but if he's still young, I think I put my second base rankings. I think I've had him sixth, and that might be a little low for him because he has a lot of talent. And they have some guys, like I said, Blade. I think Brian De La Cruz has a shot to be really good. They still got Garcia. They got Jacob Stallings, like I said. So, and of course, Sandy Alcantara. So you go from there, but trade Pablo Lopez first. Just you're not gonna get anything out of him long term, so you might as well get what you can now for him. The Milwaukee Brewers, I have extend or trade Corbin Burnes. I put either or because if you're not going to extend him, you need to trade him now and get as much back as you can because he is way too good for you to get bought low on for him, I guess you would call it. Corbin Burnes, I think, is the second best pitcher in baseball behind Jacob deGrom, barring health. And give him the money. If you give him money now, it'll be cheaper than 2-3 years whenever he's free agent. Also, you buy out his ARB years. I don't know if he said arbitration yet, so I can't really give you that answer. But I know he's not a free agent. And I know he's not going to be, I don't think anytime soon. So you trade him. If you don't extend him, you'll get probably 3 top 10 prospects within an organization for him back because he is by far an ace on any team you put him on, including the Yankees, and they have 2 aces in my opinion with Cole and Rodon, including the Mets who have Verlander and Scherzer, including the Marlins who have Alcantara. I think he's better than all those guys. The only team he wouldn't be an ace on is the Rangers, and they're not going to trade for him. So extend him or trade him. And I think I was going to put establish identity for the Brewers, but I think doing this move would establish their identity. So New Year's resolution for the Milwaukee Brewers, extend or trade Corbin Burnes. New York Mets. We still don't know about Carlos Correa. My thing with them, just keep your pitchers healthy. I know it's easier. It's not that's not a perfect world, but their resolution and their goal revolves around Verlander and Scherzer. And if you keep them healthy, this team can can legitimately win the World Series. Especially if Correa signs. And it's looking like he will. I don't know when it's going to happen. Hopefully soon, just so we can get it all off our minds. But if this team stays healthy, you got the core, you got Alonso, you got Lindor. I'm going to call them the core 4. They're the modern day core 4. Lindor, Alonso, Nimmo, McNeil. They're not as good as the ones with the Yankees in the 90s, but those 4 guys are there now for, I think, 3 years. I didn't even bring up if Correa's on this team. So, I just, this team is so loaded. And if those 2 can stay healthy, or be healthy at the right time at least, then this team's got a shot to go really far. I'm not going to talk too much about the Mets because they're my favorite team, and I don't want to be that biased, but it's the truth. When healthy, I don't know if there's a better roster in baseball. Philadelphia Phillies, I put stay afloat, which means until Bryce Harper gets back. Last year, they did a really good job of this, but now from day one you don't have him until maybe the All-Star break. And in baseball, especially now with the 6th wild card, you don't have to win the division. The Phillies proved that last year. And I think that because of that, you can tread water for 2-3 months now in baseball. I don't think you can go in the tank because I think there's a lot of competition in the NL. There's 3 or 4 teams in the NL West. There is probably two teams in the NL Central. There's 3 teams in the NL East. So that's 3, 5, 8, or 9. So 9 teams can compete, in my opinion, 6 spots. So you don't want to be the team that's left out. And there's always that surprise team. There's always the team that is not good and the team that is surprisingly good. I lost the Orioles last year. And if they can stay afloat until Bryce Harper gets back, which they shouldn't have a problem doing, especially that they added Trey Turner, also another year of Bryson Stott, another year of Alec Boehm, you can arguably win the NL East. I know it's going to be tough. There might be 300-win teams in this division, but that's a stretch, but it could happen in this division. You can stay afloat if you're let's see, July, that would be about 80 games. If you could be 45 and 43, or like 41 and 33, 41 and 36. Like, just stay close enough, like, where you can attack when Harper gets back. And he'll be back at full strength, so it makes your entire roster better because you can move Castellanos back to DH, the spot he belongs in. So, Philly, New Year's resolution, stay afloat. The Pittsburgh Pirates, I put that Oneil Cruz and Ke'Bryan Hayes have to be batting third and fourth every single day. This is the future of this team. Ke'Bryan Hayes has to just learn how to hit the ball in the air because he hits the ball very hard, and he's probably the best defensive third baseman in baseball. Oneil Cruz, his defense is a little spotty, but his metrics are incredible. Like, he hits the ball hard, he throws hard, he runs fast, and he's a freak athlete. So you have to play him every day and live through the warts because the potential is outrageous, and he even showed it towards the end of the year last year. He played really well. So you have these guys every day. You live through them. You go through them. You do whatever you have to do through them. They just signed Rich Hill, whatever, but your team is going to revolve around these two guys, and you have to know what you have in them before you do anything else with this team. That's what I really have on the Pirates. There's not really a lot going on with them, but at this point, this is what you have to do. You have to make sure that these guys are your stars, and if not, you have to not, I don't want to say pivot, but you have to adjust and get that star player. San Diego Padres, I put figure out Fernando Tatis Jr. What I mean by that is his positioning. Not when's he coming back, but can you trust him? Where are you gonna bat him in the lineup? Because let's be honest, like, he hasn't been that reliable. Like, the whole motorcycle thing, now the steroids, injuries happen. I'm not gonna blame him for that. But unless it was the motorcycle thing, then that can happen when you sign a 14-year contract. I don't think he's the shortstop of this team. I think he's profiles as the left fielder. I think Soto, they're gonna keep him in right for now. But I was going to extend Soto, but let's be honest. They have Tatis locked up. They have Bogaerts locked up. So I think Machado will be more of a worry than Soto at this point because he might opt out. But figuring out Fernando Tatis Jr., who's probably or arguably your best player, is so important, and just maximizing his talent and just regaining that trust more from Tatis than the Padres. The Padres haven't really done anything wrong. I wouldn't even say the contract's a bust yet. He's still super young and incredibly talented. But I genuinely think his future is in left field. So they should put him there now, leave him alone, and let him rake, because that's what he does best. I don't like when people say his defense is fine, he just has to learn how to make the throws. That's part of it. You gotta make the throws. And if you put him in left, let him lose his athleticism however he wants. If he keeps getting hurt, then that's another thing you have to worry about. But for now, I think the best option for them is to put him in left field. San Francisco Giants, I keep an eye on Shohei Ohtani. We talked about how the Correa thing fell through. We talked about the Aaron Judge thing falling through. They signed a couple of quality players with Haniger, Conforto, Ross Stripling, Shomanaya. But this team still obviously lacks that star, and they missed out on the two guys. Keep an eye on the Angels. Keep an eye on the Giants if I'm the... Not the Giants. Keep an eye on the Angels. Keep an eye on Shohei if I'm the Giants, because if you can attack, I would empty my farm system for this guy. And if you can attack knowing you're going to sign him, but that's a big thing with the Giants, obviously, then you got to do it, because this dude is a once-in-a-lifetime player. We will probably are going to never see a player this good in our lifetime when it comes to pitching and hitting. So keep an eye on him, and just keep an eye on the Angels, because who knows what this team, what they're going to do. Who knows what he wants to do, Ohtani that is. And the Giants are kind of set up now where they can really go all in on him next year. He'd be your ace. He'd be your best hitter. And the Giants all of a sudden would look like a World Series contender if you add Ohtani to that team. I truly believe that. The St. Louis Cardinals, I have be active at the deadline. I talked about earlier on one of my episodes, probably some of the earlier ones, that they're always good enough to make the playoffs, but they never are good enough to go past the first round, maybe second round. And I think they need to really go all in for once, because they have a couple young guys. They signed Wilson Contreras. I still think they needed a shortstop, but I mean, it's not. I guess it's not the end of the world. But they have like Donovan, they have Edman, they still got Goldschmidt and Arenado. Nolan Gorman's coming along. If Tyler O'Neill can bounce back, that would be so massive as well. But I think they really need to not like settle at the deadline and get like a really quality player, whoever team like falls out of it, get their best option because they traded for John Lester, they trade for Jose Quintana, like they make these decent moves, but like they're not needle movers. They need a needle moving move, and I think that the Cardinals have to go for it for once. The Washington Nationals. This is the wrap up the National League. Keep growing. They got a lot of young talent, and they got like C.J. Abrams, Keeper Ruiz, Josiah Gray. They just signed Dominic Smith. They also got Mackenzie Gore. Just keep growing. Keep letting these kids play. Like, you're not going to win anytime soon, but you did get a ton back for Juan Soto. See what you got with these kids because this is your future right here. Like, you traded your franchise generational player for this is your future. You got to see what you have. If you don't have what you think you need, you have to adjust. But you're not going to find that out. Like, you didn't find that out last year. You might not even find that out this year. But you'll see what kind of players guys are going to project to turn out to be as this year goes on, and you pivot from that because they're not going to be signing some massive free agent this offseason. They're not going to be trading for some massive free agent either. But this team is a couple years removed now from a World Series with like Anthony Rendon, Trey Turner. I mean, the Strasburg and Corbin contracts is just really hurting them. If you can find a way to get out of those, do it. Even if it means taking less back, just because it gives you so much more freedom to do what you want, especially if you want to stay under the CBT. But for now, just keep growing these players. I think especially C.J. Abrams, keep growing him. And Mackenzie Gore might be an X factor for you if he can be like a top of the line starter. But we'll see how he had an injury last year that concerned me a little bit, but we'll see how he bounces back. But that is the National League, and now we are on to the American League. Okay, so start off the American League New Year's resolutions. My New Year's resolution for the Baltimore Orioles is to also be active at the deadline, similar to the Arizona Diamondbacks and St. Louis Cardinals. The Orioles proved last year they have a ton of young talent. They have Gunnar Henderson coming up. They have obviously Adley Rutschman. I don't know if John Means is coming back this year, but he would be a big boost. Obviously, he'd be their ace. I think the Orioles can approach this deadline like I talked about the Cardinals doing for years. I don't think they should go crazy like prospects, trading all of them for star players because they might have stars already with Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson. Not saying you can never have enough stars. But my point is like you can keep a good foundation of this team and this team can make the playoffs. Like I don't know if they get in because there's 6 teams make it and I don't know if they're top 6 in the American League. But they have the talent, and they showed it with Rutschman. And that dude, like, he's got, like, I think he's a top 3 catcher in baseball already. So, you build from that, and you go from there. Because they also have a stud closer, the guy Felix Bautista. They use a unit, those gas. And Ramon Urias is a solid player as well. Anthony Santander, Austin Hayes, Ryan Mountcastle, I think, is very underrated. So, you have all this talent. I think, like I said, I think they should be active, but kind of like the Cardinals. Like, don't sprint on the treadmill, do a light jog, because you still have, these guys are still so young, so there's no reason to put all your chips in for this year when you can build something for the next 3 or 4 years, rather than shortening your window to just 1 year. The Boston Red Sox, it's similar to the Brewers, but a lot worse. Extend their trade Rafael Devers. I'm leaning trade him because, I mean, I think this team just needs to tear it down. You have Devers, and that's it. Like, that's really it, in my opinion. No one else on this team really stands out, I guess you would say. Like, Reese McGuire, Christian Arroyo, Alex Verdugo, Tristan Casas, who knows with Chris Sale. Justin Turner's a good player, but, he's older now. Trevor Story, I guess, but I think you need to trade him and you need to truly tear this team down because they're not going to be good and they're committed to winning, which is a really bad recipe. people talk about all the time how you don't want to be stuck in the middle. Well, the Red Sox right now are stuck at the bottom, but they're trying to win. Like, they didn't trade their players at the deadline for prospects, and they lost them all. Like, all of them. They lost JD, they lost Xander, they traded Vasquez, so that's the one guy, and they're probably going to lose Devers, so I'd get out in front of it now. He's probably not coming back unless you give him a massive extension before the season starts. I know they agreed to arbitrate. They agreed on a number for arbitration today, so that's a good sign, I guess. But I don't know. If I'm the Red Sox, I'd trade, completely tear this thing down, and just see what you got with these young kids, and just hope that you can like nail one of these guys. Hopefully, Marcelo Meyer is a superstar, because there's not much really going right for the Red Sox right now, in my opinion. The Chicago White Sox, I think this is probably the funniest one. Their New Year's resolution is to modernize the team. This team has been so, I don't want to call them old school, but so out of touch now for a couple of years. I think a lot of that has to do with the manager, who was good in the 2000s with the Cardinals. That would be Tony La Russa. But now the game's changed, and like they were, like I say all the time, they weren't fundamentally like correct. Their hitting philosophy was singles, and that's not really how you win nowadays, especially when your pitching was kind of overrated outside of Dylan Cease. Giolito wasn't that great. Lance Lynn was battling injuries all year. Michael Kopech was like in the rotation, out of the rotation. So I think this team just needs to get more analytically inclined and analytically driven. I like analytics. I know that there's a limit to them, in my opinion, but you have to have some, especially for preparation, like before games and all that. And I think they are last in baseball with analytical people in their building. So I think like they just need to become more 2023 rather than 2013, and you'll see progress. I wouldn't rule out the White Sox winning this division by any means, but there needs to be some changes made philosophically, in my opinion, and maybe they'll get that with their new manager. The Cleveland, I have keep attacking for the New Year's resolution. I know I just talked about the White Sox hitting singles, but Cleveland can chuck like with Tristan McKenzie, Shane Bieber, Cal Quantrill. I know Aaron Savali got roughed up a little bit in the playoffs, but he's a good pitcher. Emmanuel Clase's dirty. James Karinchak's really good. And then like they're hitters like Steven Kwan, Ahmed Rosario. They're both contact guys. Andres Jimenez, we might see a little bit of regression because he didn't hit the ball that hard, but I think his speed bails him out a lot. So he might get better. Like his counting numbers might like his home runs probably will stay the same, but when you have that speed, like exit velos don't matter as much, especially if you're hitting the ball on the ground. You're not popping the ball up. Anyway, they're led by Joe Ram. They just added Josh Bell, who I think is a decent fit for this team. I don't think he's the power hitter people think he is, but he's a quality bat still. Josh Naylor is a good hitter. If you could just not play him against lefties, that would be great. I do like the kid Oscar Gonzalez a lot. I think he's got a lot of talent, and he can be a really good hitter, probably their 5 hitter. And like I said, Steven Kwan. I think Austin Hedges. I think they signed Mike Zunino. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, I think they signed Mike Zunino. Before we go any further, I want to check that. Mike Zunino. I didn't think I would have to stop this podcast for Mike Zunino, but here we are. Mike Zunino is on the Cleveland Guardians, so yeah, he's their catcher now. He's got pop. Hopefully, he's healthy, and their pitching is insane. Just keep doing what you're doing, Terry Francona, Tito. Like, you're a great manager, and you should be all right. The Detroit Tigers, I put establish an identity. People forget that before last year, a lot of them had them as like their sleeper team because they added like Javi Baez, and Eduardo Rodriguez got blown out of the water way too much, like from what people thought he was going to be. He had some personal stuff going on throughout the year as well that like he missed a lot of time, which obviously that's private, and hopefully he fixed all that, and hopefully he's all good now. Casey Mize getting hurt definitely hurts like a lot. He showed a lot of promise. Tariq Schoolball is an interesting one to me. I think he's a really good pitcher, really solid pitcher. But like you got to see something from Javier Baez this year. You have to see something from Spencer Torkelson. That is probably the most important thing with the Detroit Tigers is Spencer Torkelson, because this kid was the number 1 overall pick a couple years ago. You can't be that bad. Like if you want to stick in the big leagues, you got to be better than that. Riley Green's got some talent too. So if you start to see things from them, then maybe you can kind of like push forward. But I still think you have to establish an identity of who you are rather than saying you're going for it and then your best player is Javi Baez, who was one of the worst hitters in baseball, I believe, last year. So the Tigers are in a tough spot right now, especially with Mize being hurt. But they do have some young talent. So let's see if Hinch can make it work. The Houston Astros, work in Hunter Brown is their New Year's resolution. He came on late last year as a pitcher, and a lot of people call him like Verlander 2.0. Let's pump the brakes on that. But they have Valdez, they have McCullers, they have Javier, they have Urquidy, they have Luis Garcia. So they have a lot of pitching still, even with Verlander gone. But if you can work Hunter Brown in, he can kind of fill that void as like the next starter. I'm not saying he's Verlander. I think Valdez takes that spot, to be honest. But it would just be another pitcher that comes out of their factory. I also saw they want to have some contracts done, I think with Javier and Valdez by the opening day, which would be insane. But I think working this kid in is very important because like Altuve's fine, Abreu's fine, Bregman's fine, Tucker's fine. Like all these guys are fine. You don't have to worry about them. And I still think their catcher position is a little questionable. Maybe they re-sign. Like they have Maldonado and that's it. Like they can't re-sign Vasquez. My bad. He signed with the Twins. But Astros will be fine. So I think working in him is going to be the most important thing. Who I got? Kansas City Royals. Let the kids play. Let's see Bobby Witt and Vinny Pasquantino. That's a name. Every day. Let's see Brady Singer toe the slab every 5 days. Let's see it. They got some young guys. Like let's be honest, this team isn't awful. Shouldn't say that. They have some hope. They have some direction, and what they do with it is up to them now. Like if Witt hits, no rhyme intended. If Pasquantino can rake, that's big, and you build from that. Salvi's on his way out, but for now he's your catcher. I saw, like I love Brady Singer. Like if he can be an everyday like an ace, that would be like really projecting. But if he could be a top of the line guy, that's a pitcher, and you build from there. I'm sure they have other guys I'm not mentioning, but for now those are the three guys that really stick out to me, and move on. Like the AL Central isn't that great, so if you can catch lightning in the bottle for a month, you can get some hope, and you can not win the AL Central, but give yourself hope that you can, and give yourself hope that you are good enough. The Los Angeles Angels, I have in all caps, sign Shohei Ohtani. It is so important. And what I mean by sign Shohei Ohtani and how it's so important is that you need to go for it fully this year because there's a really good chance you lose him after this season and you can't miss the playoffs. You have to show him that you have to show Shohei that you mean business. You have to show Mike Trout that you're in it to win it. I know they made some moves. They got Renfroe, they got Tyler Anderson, they got Gio Urshela, but they got Brandon Drury too. You have to make the playoffs. Like this team needs to if they want any chance of keeping Ohtani. I still think it's unlikely, but you make the playoffs, you win a round. There's no reason why they can't. They have a lot of talent. So, and their pitching wasn't even a problem last year for them. I think they had like a top 7 starters ERA or something like that, something crazy. You need to make the playoffs. This is so important for this team because if you lose Shohei Ohtani, you probably lose half your fan base as well. The Minnesota Twins trade the veterans, trade Jorge Polanco. I think even trade Luis Arias because you lost Correa for now. We'll see what's going on with him in the Mets. You lost Correa. You lost like Royce Lewis got hurt again. Byron Buxton's locked up. I saw they're looking to trade away Sonny Gray after a year after getting him, which I wouldn't do. But I would say I wouldn't do a full-on tear down here, but establish who you want in your core going forward and trade the rest of them because you're in no man's land right now. And like I said before with the Red Sox, that's the worst place to be. So if the Twins can move forward. Like they tried it with Correa. Obviously, I don't think he's going to come back, even if he doesn't go to the Mets. You have Buxton if you can keep him healthy. You have Royce Lewis if you can keep him healthy. Like Jorge Polanco would be an interesting guy to me if this team falls out of it on being like a trade value guy, because he is a really solid player and he would fit a lot of teams. So if I'm Minnesota, I would trade these veteran guys because, like I said, you're not good enough to win the World Series, but you're not bad enough to like bottom out and get a top 5 pick. The New York Yankees, trade for Brian Reynolds because I still think they need a left fielder, a left-handed power bat outside of Anthony Rizzo, and he's that guy. Like, I saw a package today that included just Jason Dominguez, and that's fine. Like, Dominguez kind of fell prospect-wise. Like, I think Volpe passed him pretty convincingly. So, that concerns me that he falls right away, but, you know, trade for him. You really fill out your team. You got Rodon. Obviously, you re-sign Judge. And that's a power bat. He's I said he's lefty, but he's a switch, which is even bigger because it makes him more versatile, and you don't have to platoon him, even though I think he's good enough to not platoon anyway. But that short porch, he's a quality outfielder as well, but he doesn't have to play center, which is also a big deal. So, New York Yankees New Year's resolution, trade for Brian Reynolds. The Oakland Athletics, their New Year's resolution is for them to not be called the Oakland Athletics anymore. It should be the Las Vegas Athletics. We spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. Move to Vegas because what they're doing in Oakland is, in my opinion, atrocious and an embarrassment. The stadium has like issues like you can't believe. I've heard so many times. We've seen players talk about how it's like a dump, and that's not a good viewing experience. The fan base doesn't even show up anymore. The team is going to be so bad this year, and Vegas, like we saw it with the Raiders, like it's a money move. The Raiders weren't good this year, but it's a money move. And why not do it? You can really, really, really give yourself a chance to retool and kind of re-identify your team by making this move. So you got to do this. You got to move to Vegas. Seattle Mariners, I have keep Julio and pitching healthy. Julio Rodriguez is their prized possession. He is their golden boy, and he deserves to be. He's super talented. He's going to get MVP votes almost every year, in my opinion. And they're pitching as well. Not MVP votes. Keep them healthy. Because Castillo, Ray, I know Ray had a bad year, but Castillo, Ray, Gilbert, Kirby, Marco Gonzalez, I'm forgetting somebody, but you keep those guys healthy and you keep Julio healthy, you win 90 games just based on the fact that you have probably 3 or 4 number 2 quality starters. Tampa Bay Rays, can you please spend money? This New Year's resolution is spend $1. Just $1. They signed Zach Eflin, and it was the biggest AAV ever. And I don't even know if it was $20 million. You can't. It's starting to run out. Like, you made the playoffs last year, and you did not look that competitive, like offensively, against the Guardians. Granted, the Guardians pitching is elite, but really, like, you can't score like what was it, 1 run in 2 games. Like, you have Wander Franco, who has something to prove, in my opinion. Like, he didn't really do that much last year, but he was also injured. Brandon Lau has to stay healthy as well. They lost Nathaniel Lowe, which is looking like a bad move for them. They traded G-Man Choi. Yandy Diaz is a solid player. Randy Rosarena is a solid player. So they have some guys, but they just spend something. Like, attack your roster rather than trading someone as soon as they get a little bit expensive. I'm not saying be the Steve Cohen Mets or the AJ Preller Padres, but don't be cheap. Don't be cheap, because I know these owners have a ton of money, so just spend some of it. The Texas Rangers, goes without saying, their New Year's resolution is to keep Jacob deGrom healthy, because we've seen what this guy can do when he's healthy. Obviously, I've seen it as a Mets fan. He is otherworldly. Like, his talent is so good, and if he is on the mound, they have a shot against any team in baseball, and that includes the Houston Astros, who they're fighting for to take the division. The Astros have been owning this division now for now close to 5-6 years now. If he is healthy, it also makes everyone else better. If he is healthy, your offense doesn't have to be as good. I've seen that with the Mets way too much, but he is so vital to this team, and obviously that goes without saying. But Jacob deGrom healthy is the best pitcher in baseball, and with the Rangers, have a chance to really make a leap and maybe even make the playoffs this year. The Toronto Blue Jays, this is an interesting one for me, but I have extended Vladimir Guerrero Jr. We've seen a lot of young guys like Julio Rodriguez get signed, and we've seen like Tatis get signed. We saw a bunch of White Sox players get signed. We've seen the Braves players get signed. I think the Blue Jays need to do that with Vladimir Guerrero. I think he's so talented, and he's also fixed his defense. So he's an MVP candidate. He rakes. He seems like a quality guy. Like I don't know him, but just you lock this guy up. You don't gotta worry about him. You don't gotta worry about that issue that the Red Sox have had, or the Yankees were even having with Aaron Judge, or the Mets had with DeGrom, or Trey Turner got traded, or Soto and the Nationals. Like that would probably be the biggest comp I could put. You extend him now, you put him at first base, you leave him alone, and you just kind of you take a stress off your back by just giving this guy 10 years, $310 million. And hopefully he says yes. And if he does, woohoo, you have your first baseman, you have an MVP candidate for 10 years. And then you move on to the rest of your roster. That's all I got for New Year's resolutions today. I really hope you enjoyed that. But I just have one more thing to say. We all saw what happened to the Buffalo Bills safety. I believe his name is DaRon Hamlin. I want to get that name right. Damar Hamlin. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. Damar Hamlin. That was probably the scariest thing I've ever seen, sporting event wise. I've seen like Kevin Ware. I've seen Ryan Shazier. Marcus Lattimore, running back, I believe. Just it's scary because, and the way they described it, like the helmet like hit him at like I don't want to say perfect time, but the exact time that like the heartbeat, it was scary. Like I was watching the game and I saw T. Higgins caught the ball. Then I looked away. Then I saw he was on the floor. I'm like, there was no one that really got hit like that hard. Like, and I'm like, is that guy moving? And then I walked away. I get a text like they're doing CPR. I'm like, oh my god. I do this podcast for fun. I enjoy sports for fun, but it takes you back. It makes you realize that like we're humans. Like these athletes are humans, and he is as well. And I'm praying that he can pull out of this. I saw reports that like he's hopefully doing better, but obviously there's no guarantees with a situation like this. So I really hope that I hope he pulls through. I hope that everyone keeps rallying around him. I think it's great how like all sports are rallying around him. I wasn't going to do this podcast today because I felt a little weird being a little upbeat about like sports, but I figured bring some positivity, like I said earlier, and just bring some light to like a really tough day, like as a sports fan, because Damar Hamlin like is 24 years old, and it's tough. It really is. It puts in reality that like sports are such a minor thing in people's lives, but how they can bond people together. Like we saw the Bills and Bengals after the game, and it was touching. Like it was tough. It was tough to like fathom what was going on. Yeah, like you can't really put it into words because you pray that you never have to experience that or go through that, and you never think it's going to happen to you, and then it does. Like I'm sure Damar Hamlin didn't wake up that day thinking that was going to happen, and unfortunately, and he's come out a model citizen. We've heard about these GoFundMe pages for his toy drives with kids, and I think people like lose sight that like 99% of athletes are good people, and he's one of them, obviously. It really does put in reality that there's so much more to life than sports, obviously, and how humanized these situations can make you, and how little everything else means. like people aren't even like, in my opinion, like football was so like, I don't even know if it was second nature. I don't want to say second nature. I don't even know if it was like second fiddle at that point. Like it wasn't on anyone's mind. I was thinking about like, what, like, is this guy going to live? Like that was like a genuine thought of mine and a lot of people. And like obviously like right now he's sedated, I believe, and he's got a breathing tube. I know he's on oxygen, and it's a scary situation. And I really hope he pulls through. Obviously, like keep saying that. And just keep praying. If you are out there, even if you don't like football, just pray, because guy's 24 years old with obviously like a world of talent, but even besides that, just a world of talent as a human. Like he seems like such a genuine, loving human, and he's proven it. Like with his charity work and just his. If you hear him talk, you heard about like his brother. Like he wants to grow up with him, meaning like he stayed home to college to be with him, and you hear those stories and it makes you sad that like it happened to such a kind-hearted human, and just hope that he can get out of the woods and hope he can make a full recovery. And even if he never plays football again, if he gets to live a life, that's a plus, because it's scary, and these situations you truly don't know what's going to happen. But one more time, just prayers out to Damar Hamlin and his family, the Bills, football community, everyone. Just prayers to anyone that was close to him, loved ones, or that is close to him, I should say. And just makes you really live in reality a little bit more, live in the moment, and just appreciate everything you have, and appreciate the fun things we have in life rather than yelling about sports. Just appreciating that we get to watch it every day, and how grateful we are to have like a quote-unquote escape from world issues that we don't even talk about. And this is a situation where it brings that back. It brings back the fact that it's just a sport, and that it literally means nothing at the moment to the Buffalo Bills, and I don't blame them one bit. Even the Cincinnati Bengals. You saw the looks on their faces. Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen, they're like crying. They're crying on the field. Like, we've seen guys get injured before, and you just skate over it, and it's major injuries. But when a guy's life is on the line, it's scary, and it's tough to turn the page. And I can't even imagine being in those guys' shoes, and I give them so much credit for right now just hanging in there, just praying for their brother, because I've been in dugouts before as a baseball player. I've been on teams my whole life, and you get close with people every day for a couple of months. I was in high school. These guys, it's all year round, and you really sit and just you think, and you just pray, and when you're done praying, pray again, because that's all you can do. But I wanted to end on that, just to throw that out there. But pray for Damar Hamlin, and hopefully by next week we have some hopefully better news for him and better news for his family as well. So pray for Damar Hamlin, and that's all I got. I will see you guys next week.